Mic check, mic check. Mic check, mic check. Get a little bit of sunlight up in here. All right, so things are still not great. I still can't record consistently yet. Things are really rough right now. And of course, the flu just hit town real bad. The flu went through this town for about 10 days. And it's like subsiding right now. But main reason I'm recording right now, and the main thing I want to talk about is Trump impeachment. The Democrats are about to try to impeach Trump. So please like and share. Please like, share, subscribe this, just so they can listen to this first part that I'm going to talk about as far as impeaching Trump. When it comes to this next impeachment with Trump, this has to be some kind of special impeachment. You guys got to get rid of J.D. Vance as well, because everything that's impeachable that Donald Trump has done and said, J.D. Vance has co-signed it. This whole lie that they're trying to sell, this cover-up, and it's crazy. They just cover up. These are the most evil people in the world. The conservative party, the MAGA movement, the Republicans, shouldn't nobody be voting for them for a real long time. They're supposed to be Christians. Look how they acting. No more wars. Look at how they acting. Invaded one country already, got Maduro, and now they're talking about Greenland. Weird things. Talking about military options to invade Greenland. And now they just ICE killed the woman on video, and it was straight up murder. Even though the Trump and, this could be the last straw. And as far as the Democrats, the liberals, anybody that's anti-MAGA, first and foremost, this has to be it. This has to be the last straw. ICE has killed how many people in this last year? Invaded other cities and killed how many citizens? This last one with this white lady is crazy. She wasn't hostile. They said she was a terrorist and all this other stuff. We saw the video. The most you could call that woman is snarky. You can't even call her mean. You can't even call her sassy. She made one snarky little maybe a little passive aggressive at the most. But again, snarky. She got murdered for being a smart aleck. And they talking about she tried to run him over. They attacked her vehicle. A bunch of men attacked her vehicle, and she just tried to drive away from them. And, so this whole racial stuff, all of us in America, it's a couple things. We gotta, one, this is probably going to be the video I've been talking about making for a really long time. As a matter of fact, this is going to be it. This is going to be the video that I've been talking about a long time. For a long time, I've been talking about how I'm going to make a pro-white video. Because, I be feeling bad sometimes when I talk all my, especially when I'm in character, especially, when I'm Bro Nogan. When I'm Bro Nogan, I'm in particular clowning one of my favorite comedians, Joe Rogan, and his racial stuff that I really don't like. Feel betrayed, feel bamboozled by Joe Rogan. I wish I would have known 20 years ago that you was going to support Donald Trump at the time you did, when you did. Again, I've been a fan of Joe Rogan for a long time. Of all the times to endorse Donald Trump, he chose right before the election. And then, as far as the pro-blacks are concerned, pro-blacks are going to get real mad at this video. And this is a good reason and a good way for me to get into it. Because I got to address the number one pro-black in America. All of our pro-blacks are always so problematic. And this pro-black, our number one pro-black, he's been problematic for a real long time. But Umar Johnson, we got to let Umar Johnson have it today. I am finna speak for the blacks today. Yes, I ain't black. I'm black, but I ain't black right. I ain't the right black. I'm part Latin, I'm part Jewish. And right now the black community really hates Latins and Latinos. And right now they really hate Jews. That bugs me more than anything else, the anti-Semitism. And hopefully we could talk about all of that. Like I say, this is going to be kind of my pro-white video. I'm still very against I'm very against white supremacy in all forms. You know, if this channel is consistently against one thing, it's against that, white supremacy. And I'm against white supremacy in all its forms. But let's get to this impeachment thing first, just because, you know, I'm going to make this video long. And I keep pausing because my nose is trying to run. But this Donald Trump impeachment, you got a special impeachment. You got to find a way to impeach J.D. Vance as well. And if any, like, this got to be a special impeachment. This is not a normal impeachment, and this isn't the normal impeachment process. Donald Trump, in his first year, has killed so many people, literally taking the lives of so many people. You know, the ICE deaths, we can definitely blame this on Trump. Here's another question. Why the fuck are there no black ICE agents? We need money. And I know for a fact that they've been recruiting ex-convicts like myself here in Texas. I live in Texas. I'm from Chicago, but I live in Texas. And I went to prison here in Texas. I was locked up, you know, white supremacists everywhere. These prisons all over Texas, they was run by the white supremacists. They try to lie and say that it's blacks, but it ain't. And that's something, too, that they never talk about. They never talk about the white gangs in this country. Talk about gangs all the time, but they don't talk about white gangs. And no matter what city you're talking about, the white gangs going to have more power than the black gangs every single time. I'm from Chicago, so I know that ain't the city that you said, but they do say it. They make it seem like blacks are responsible for like 80% of the crimes in Chicago. And that is not true at all. That's not true at all. Blacks are least likely to be criminals in Chicago than other races. I'll stand by that. I'll prove it. I'll go to the city. I'll film. I'll go anywhere in the city and film. It is what it is. It's true. And there are definitely some very dangerous white supremacist gangs in Chicago. I know their neighborhoods, but they used to jump me as a kid if I would cut through their neighborhood, so I'm not scared of them now as a grown man. I will definitely go to some of these racist-ass neighborhoods in Chicago and interview and talk to the gangbangers. Like people know in Chicago, you know, if you're going to be interviewing gangbangers, it is going to be a little bit more dangerous in the black and brown neighborhoods because those are the ones that are more overpopulated, more overcrowded. They policed in a certain way, and the way shit just pops off, and they don't solve those crimes over there. You look at the neighborhoods in Chicago where they got all the blue light cameras, they don't use those cameras to solve crimes. At least that's what they was telling me when I was interviewing cats on the streets in Chicago, like, what was that, 14, 15, 16 years ago? It's funny the lack of respect that I get from YouTube. And just everybody. I feel like, you know, I want to do comedy, and I might pull a old Rodney Dangerfield. No respect at all. But that's real talk. And that's something that, you know, I am mad as a black man about that. Nobody ever treats me as smart as they should treat me. They don't treat me, great example. This is going to be sidetracked, but great example right now. So I'm in Austin, Texas right now. And I'm like in the neighborhood. I'm over here. I'm on the south side. I'm in one of the neighborhoods that I spend a lot of time in. But anyway, a Mexican chick. And this neighborhood I'm in is mostly Mexican. You know, like I say, this is Austin. This shit was Mexico 200 years ago. Austin ain't never been, you know, this has always been mostly Tejanos. Anyway, Tejanos is supposed to be, it doesn't matter what race you are. But either way it go, she gave me this. What causes fear to get trapped in your mind? So she handed me this. And, you know, I'm in the mood today. I was going to talk to this person who was coming up to minister to me, but I was not expecting this. A Mexican chick gave me this on the south side of Austin. Scientology. L. Ron Hubbard. So I told her, yeah, I read the whole book. I read Dianetics. Dianetics was so easy to read. I had already read the Bible completely cover to cover by the time I got my hands on Dianetics. And I read this like that. Dianetics is a very easy read because it's classified as kind of like a self-help book, but it's also some theories that L. Ron Hubbard was coming up with. It's a mix of like a religious book, a science book, a psychology book, and a science fiction book. But I found it ironic because I talk about the Scientologists all the time. And the last video I uploaded, I talked about L. Ron Hubbard and the concept of one shot clear. I brought this up to the girl today and I asked her if she heard of it. And she was saying something to me. She was like, I'm not sure if L. Ron Hubbard wrote that. And I'm like, yes, the books I read were by L. Ron Hubbard. And I explained it to her. I study all kind of religions, and I've studied religions. I've always been fascinated with religion. I was given a Bible when I was born. The nurse that participated in giving birth to me in Chicago, she gifted me with one of those beautiful Jehovah's Witness children's books when I was a little boy. So that was like my first book. I own that book. I don't have it now. Supposedly it's in a safe place and I trust it to be there, but that's such a special Bible to me. That's the first Bible I read. And of course I read that Bible, that cover, I read that cover to cover. But that doesn't really count because it's a children's Bible. Most of the Bible's missing from it, and it's from the Jehovah's Witnesses. And I was a Jehovah's Witness for a while. That was one of my first conversions when I converted from Christianity. I converted to, because I read the Bible cover to cover. And once you read the Bible cover to cover, you get out and you talk to these Christians and you're like, hey, man, what the fuck, man? The Bible says this, man. The Bible says that, man. The Bible says this, man. And y'all literally do things that the Bible says don't do, especially Jesus. That's the one that you're supposed to listen to for all time, and that's the main one y'all disobey. You definitely disobey the regular commandments too. But L. Ron Hubbard, again, it's a very easy read. Anybody who thinks that studying the Bible, Christianity, Judaism, or any of the, Hinduism, Krishna, all those other religions, they're so complicated. And if they're foreign to you, like for an American that grew up around Christianity or Judaism to try to study like Krishna or Hinduism or Buddhism, they're so different. But then you got Scientology. It's not really a religion. It's the religion that's not a religion, and it's an anti-religious religion. And L. Ron Hubbard, who and what was he? He was a, prolific science fiction writer. Everybody talks about that. But he also wanted to start a cult. He definitely wanted to start a cult. He planned on starting a cult. He started this cult, and he did it in plain sight. And the main way he did it was by writing these books. If you're new to Scientology, you might not know, but it's all about the books. L. Ron Hubbard wrote a shitload of Scientology books. And I was telling this girl about one very special Scientology book that I got my hands on. And this was after I had read because I was in there with a dude who was a Scientologist, but he gave it up after he had, made it to all these levels. And he paid. In prison, for you to get all these books, you got to be sending these people money for them to mail you these books that he was getting. But anyway, one of the reasons he shared them with me is because I love studying religion. I love studying, period. And I also I was like the jailhouse professor / you know what I'm saying? It's hard to explain the way they treated me on my last prison unit. But one of my nicknames was the professor. One of my nicknames was old school. One of my nicknames, I'm from Chicago, so a lot of people did call me Chi-Town. But again, those names, professor and old school, I often say that because that's clearly how people treated me. A nickname like Chi-Town, it's kind of irrelevant. You know what I'm saying? Chicago's a very diverse city, and so many of us get locked up in Texas. If you do some time in Texas, you've been locked up with all kind of brothers from Chicago. You've probably been locked up with brothers with the 5, brothers with the 6, brothers with the shit, brothers with the books, brothers with the looks, brothers with the... Man, I was about to say some old Chi-Town shit right there that I shouldn't say because I've outgrown it. And a lot of that stuff that we said, a lot of the little rhymes, they weren't very... I'm too old to be saying some of them old rhymes. But back to this. In my last video, I was talking about L. Ron Hubbard's One Shot Clear. And I remember, so I can't remember the name of that book, but I know it was a brown book. Those Scientology books, one reason that this book was so special, it was a thick brown book, and it was a hardbound book. Most of these Scientology books, they were soft-covered. But this one in particular was hard-covered, and as a matter of fact, let me pause it and see if I could Google it and see if I could recognize the cover of the book. Because if I see the book, I read it, this is 2026. So I read it like 11, 12, 13 years ago, something like that. I don't know where I left off, but The sun went down real quick, and I had to move so I could get some internet. But like I said, we're going to dedicate this to the white people. First and foremost, it was a white woman that got murdered in Minneapolis, about a mile away from George Floyd. Where George Floyd got murdered by a police officer, a narco drug warrior police that likes killing black people. Now we have ICE, Border Patrol agents, with accents that I recognize. These motherfuckers from down here. These motherfuckers got southern. The funny thing is, a lot of these dudes, I could tell. A lot of those ICE dudes are Hispanic dudes from border towns. Like, they're ICE agents. Like, these motherfuckers, I've met some of these motherfuckers at the border. Some of these motherfuckers I met at the Texas border, Arizona border, New Mexico border. As a trucker, I met a lot of these dudes, and they sent a lot of them agents who just work around this dusty-ass border, because most of the border, especially once you get west, it's desert. It's dusty. It's desert. El Paso, New Mexico, Arizona, all that. And a lot of Southern California, straight up desert. And they shot that lady, man. They murdered that lady, man. And this is Donald Trump's fault. ICE ain't got no business in Minneapolis. They got no business in Minneapolis. They got no business there. What the hell are they doing in Minneapolis? That's the Midwest, man. That's the Midwest. That's literally over 2,000 miles away from any part of the Mexican border. 3,000 miles at some points. Like, that's ridiculous, man. And it's right next door to my hometown. I'm from Chicago originally, and I'm so proud to be from the Midwest because they're standing up to Donald Trump. They done sent them Confederate soldiers up there, and you hear them. And that's another reason why I got to defend white people. Like I say, I live in Texas now, but I'm from Chicago, man. And it ain't just talk. Look at how our white people in Illinois are standing up. Look at how our white people in Minneapolis are standing up. Minnesota, standing up. Some parts of California, standing up. The places where ICE is getting the real trouble is white people, white liberals. Because the blacks and Mexicans, conservative or liberal, when those badges show up, they act real. They're real macho and dangerous with each other. They'll fight each other. They'll shoot each other over some Jordans or over a Ruka or whatever, however you want to say it. Black and brown will kill each other for anything. And then those browns that's trying to be white, because, let's face it, man, that might have been a white Mexican that shot that lady, man. A lot of these I recognize accents. I've traveled so much in the country, and my accent changes depending on where I'm immersed at the moment. I don't even know if I got a Midwestern accent or a Southern accent. I be hearing both. Some people tell me I sound like I'm way Southern country cowboy. My own son, my son from up north, he said I sound like a hillbilly cowboy one day. He didn't say it like that. He didn't say it real mean, but he was like, yeah, you sound country, man. He didn't say it like that. He young. And then my oldest son, well, my sons don't really count. When it comes to them, I don't really got an accent. I sound like fucking dad. Especially my oldest son. I'm literally the first voice he heard and kept hearing. Anyway, shout out to my oldest son's mother for allowing me the privilege of being there when my son was birthed. That's the only birth that I was in the room for. Anyway, white people. Let's just spit it out. White people in America need to stop being demonized for racism, even though we can't help it. White people that's mad about being demonized, about being called racist all the times, be mad at the white people that's always being racist 24/7. But most of America, maybe now it's different. I mean, most of these people voted for Trump. And, everything I said about Trump, every fucking thing I said about Trump came true. And all of you people say I'm stupid. I didn't graduate high school. I dropped out of high school. I got a GED. According to most Americans, I'm stupid because I'm black from Chicago and never met my father. That's the red pill message right there. If you was raised by a single mother, you ain't shit, and you'll never be shit, and you can't be shit. And single mothers ain't shit. Fuck that. I'm from the side of America. I'm Team Tupac. We're very pro single mother, and we're very pro. It'd be nice if families could be intact, but fuck that. It's better to struggle without the abuse. My biological father probably was not broke. And my mama probably could have and should have probably submitted to him. Be honest, my mama probably should have submitted to my father if he was like offering her marriage. For example, my youngest, all my sons' mothers, I would have gladly married them if they would have been wives to me. And I bet my father's the same. I bet my father, he got my mother pregnant and he was just thinking about marriage. And he was just thinking like, how can I marry this woman? With my youngest, both of my sons' mother, I kept thinking about that. Like, how can I compromise? They're not going to walk where I'm going to walk. I'm talking about the Bible. I read the Bible all the time. And it's clear from our Bible studies that this woman is just going to always look at the Bible very differently to me. That's going to be a problem. But I was willing to compromise that. How can I, and maybe I'm wrong. Let me listen. Let me not talk so much. Yeah, I read the Bible cover to cover, but what's up with this spiritual stuff? Because so many women these days, they're spiritual, not religious. Nowadays, men are spiritual, not religious. What that really means is you a lazy, illiterate motherfucker. Spiritual, not religious means you don't want to study the fucking shit. Because studying is so hard. Studying religion is hard. And it's esoteric. And it's clouded in mystery and shrouded in mystery. I just noticed that all these birds are here. You hear that? How did I not notice that? I'm sure you guys noticed it. So this is the South. Once we start seeing birds like this here, we know they're going to start flying north. This is a good sign that this is going to be a mild winter. This ain't going to be that bad of a winter. Gift and a curse. Because we ready to fight. We want to fight. It looked like, and it seems like Donald Trump is trying to provoke. Donald Trump, MAGA, and ICE are trying to provoke a civil war. It looks like somewhere in the Midwest, the National Guard is going to have to protect the citizens from ICE. They ain't done it yet, but in Minneapolis, they mad. And I hope, Minneapolis and Illinois, y'all should start hiring people, especially Illinois. I'm from Chicago. Chicago in particular. Y'all should hire dudes like me to join the National Guard. I am a convicted felon, but my felony, I got that when I was 18. I'm almost 50 now. And I'm a good 50. And I've been here in Texas. Illinois National Guard, hire me. I was born in Chicago, and I've never stayed away for too long. And I'll definitely go up there, switch my CDL over, all that other stuff. I would definitely return to Chicago if I could go as some kind of law enforcement officer. I don't have my gun rights or anything, but I never applied for them, and it shouldn't be hard for me to get them. I caught my crime at 18, and like I say, I'm almost 50. I've been a trucker. The last 30 years, what I've been doing? Trucker, writer, homeless. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's funny, people clown me because I choose to live in my vehicle. I don't live in a place. My first apartment that I had, I was a teenager, man. How old was I when I hired my first apartment? Paying all the rent, living by myself. That's not this video. That's not what this is about. And it doesn't really matter. What was we talking about? Why was I even talking about my first apartment? Oh, yeah, I'm a taxpaying citizen. So my felony shouldn't stop me from being able to get my gun rights back. Now, I am in Texas. This damn governor in Texas is a racist piece of shit. This motherfucker probably would never give me my gun rights back because he's a racist piece of shit. And I'll say that. And it's something you got to remember. I went to Texas prison as a child, as a teenager. So I was property of the state my entire adult life. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. I did my time in prison. I wasn't no bitch. I wasn't no slave. I went to lockdown lots of times. I pulled their card lots of times. They threatened me lots of times. They took my DNA by force. They had to, because I wasn't going to comply. And they threatened me. Give us your DNA. What the fuck for? The fuck you even want my DNA for? That reminds me, I do want to talk about Facebook. Facebook sent me a message this morning saying that I might be suicidal. I ain't suicidal. I ain't never suicidal. I'm pissed off about that too. It's been 3 times in my life that motherfuckers tried to say I was suicidal. I ain't never suicidal. I ain't never suicidal. You know, I should be able to sue Texas for this old suicide watch arrest that happened a couple years ago, but nobody will help me with that. I ain't found a lawyer yet. People scared. People scared. People are scared. But people are also fucking tired. And, you know, Trump said you got to fight like hell or you ain't going to have no country left. He said that. Fight like hell or you ain't going to have no country left. All of these ICE agents are white-skinned people. What the fuck? I came over here and I got the light because we are going to get Gemini involved here in a second. I still can't afford to pay that phone bill, so I got to connect to Wi-Fi. And the camera ain't focused to where you can see the truck, but it's a mess. I might not find that phone. Oh no, it's got to be in my clothes. But yeah, I definitely ain't suicidal. I'm pissed off about that. Why in the fuck will Facebook say that I'm suicidal? Ain't nothing about me changed. And that's something too I hate about Facebook. Always trying to, why the fuck are they saying I'm suicidal? I really got to know that. And I sent them a message like, I want to know why. I want to know why. Why the fuck y'all saying I'm suicidal? That's kind of threatening to me. I'm not depressed. I'm not happy. And I'm not very hopeful. But I'm not fucking scared like you punk motherfuckers. Again, let's get back to what I was saying about the house and the apartment and everything. Some motherfuckers might try to clown me for being homeless. Real talk. Especially one motherfuckers that I used to give money to on a very regular basis. I stopped giving people money because I'm homeless now. I need help. I need finance. I mean, I did just send my baby mama. Not much, but I did just send her some money the other day. I ain't got no money. But she ain't gonna never stop. She ain't gonna never let me get back on my feet. Even though 3 times, when I first met, I was living in the shelter. 3 times, I pulled myself from nothing to something. From nothing to something. And then last time I pulled myself up, I was doing so good. I was doing so good. But she's the type of woman, like a lot of these women. She's like a lot of women. The more you give them, the more they waste. That's like most Americans, period. If you give them an endless supply, they're just going to become wasteful and destructive. Our consumerism, it knows no bounds. It knows no ends. And this is bad light, and I know this is bad light, and I look horrible. But I'm not, like I say, I'm almost 50. And you know, I've been on YouTube 20 years. I ain't going to blow up for being beautiful. Which is not possible anyway. You know, my YouTube channel was never going to be manicured and polished like that. It could have been professional. You know, I'll be presentable every day if I'm in that position. But now, man, I've been dealing with homelessness and shit. You know, and again, I'm not ashamed of that. I know how to get money. You know, I was in and out of prison when I was a young man. And I could definitely go back to crime and figure out some crimes that won't get me locked up. I was doing fun crimes, robbing people, tying people up and shit, being a goon, beat people for money and shit. You know, like doing all this little contract shit I was doing. Stealing. You know, when I was 18, I was arrested for the robbery that got me convicted. But like that 15-month period, I was arrested for like 5 different felonies. Most of them got completely dismissed. So again, I say that to say I'm a fan of Tupac. And Tupac, I was a kid when Tupac was rapping. And I remember listening to him and looking up to him, and he would go on these speeches and rants like, man, what's the point of even being rich? I can't live around my people. You know what I'm saying? If I move to the ghetto, the motherfuckers gonna try to rob me, and they gonna try to rob me because they starving. And I know because Tupac didn't say I know because I rob people, but Tupac rapped like he robbed some people a couple times. I think Tupac might have committed a couple robberies. And not just that, but that's just the way it was back in those days. If you sell drugs for a living, you gotta rob. You selling crack in the 90s, every now and then you're gonna have to rob some people. Every now and then you're gonna have to get into some shit. And them street life, them dudes be fucking each other over all the time. Now back to the white people. Now, the Civil War was fought. And a lot of people that are a little bit too militant love to say that, these people fought to keep their slaves. Well, let's be respectful with the math. Most white people who fought in the Civil War fought with the Union to end slavery. And they weren't as clueless and dumb as a lot of people try to make it seem. They knew what was up. They knew they was fighting to end slavery. They knew they was fighting to end slavery. I mean, they knew a lot of other things, like we can't have a hostile country to the south that's completely they slave country and we're an industrialized country. That's gonna be a problem. We already got a problem because all these slaves from the south are always running up north, and then they try to come up here again, just like with this modern day ICE shit. They slaves try to escape up north, and we send these motherfuckers up north to go get those people and bring them back where they belong. History's complicated and it's confusing. And it's really funny, and things go back and forth. And a lot of black people don't know our history. We weren't dominated. We weren't subjugated. We weren't nothing like they say it was. A lot of black people, when they talk about slavery, it's really annoying because they talk about slavery was just one big plantation. Like the whole state of Georgia was just one big plantation and all slaves was right there doing the same shit. No, slavery in Georgia was very different from slavery in North Carolina, very different from slavery in South Carolina, very different from slavery in Florida, very different from slavery in Texas. Just the topography alone, the slavery is going to be so different. Everything is going to be so different. Florida and Georgia and Texas, Carolina, they are nothing alike topographically, land-wise, geology, geography, agriculture, nothing is similar. The water, the wildlife, like nothing is similar. The temperature, the weather, you know what I'm saying? Hurricanes in Florida and Louisiana and all that other type of stuff. You can't even have slave quarters the same way. And, like Georgia is definitely known for like those super plantations. But those super plantations in Georgia couldn't really exist in Florida the way they did, even though they did have some big ass sugar plantations in Florida. But the point remains is I'm really sick of black people talking about slavery and they don't know shit about black history. It's really fucking embarrassing and it's miseducation. Like, the real problem with us black Americans and Americans period is we don't really have history. We're making history and we haven't decided what the history books are going to say. And there's no ruling on America. What will people say about America when that final chapter closes? What will the final chapter be? Will it be, my whole life, it was always the end of the world. The end of the world was always 2 years away in my life. That's another reason that I can't stand people talking like nowadays is different than when I was a kid. No, you punk bitches just didn't read the news back then. And even if you did read the fucking news, you just read it. You watched like the evening news real casually, in one ear, out the other. You don't remember the racial riots every single fucking decade. The 1960s assassinations and all that shit. And then the 70s, the Vietnam protests and the fucking Black Power movement and the Black Power groups, the Black Panthers turning into groups like the Crips and the Bloods and all that other type of shit. Again, 60s, 70s, mad political assassinations. They murdered motherfucking Fred Hampton in Chicago. Police went and shot him up while he was in his bed. These fucking raids they be planning, man. They stand outside their house, you in there sleeping, and they in there talking, and they like, when you hear them talking about these raids, you don't see it on TV. Because by the time cops came around, they weren't recording that shit, and they knew not to talk like that in front of the camera. But when we go in there, man, we going in there hot. Let's try to get these motherfuckers to jump and give us a reason to shoot them and kill them. That was like that in the 70s and 80s. When I was growing up in Chicago in the 70s and 80s, they used to always tell us never run from the police because they love shooting us in the back. We still ran from the police sometimes. I had to be taught to run from the police because that was a fear that my mom instilled in me. Never run from the police because they will shoot you in the back. And they did. They definitely did shoot a lot of Chicago police. There ain't a decade they wasn't shooting motherfuckers in the back. Notoriously. And then the drug war, the racist ass drug war. But either way it go, slavery is very, 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 very complex. We got some great historians out there. And even they haven't scratched the surface. So to have you stupid motherfuckers, let me tell you about slavery. See, what the slaves did was blah, 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 blah. And then they just say some stupid ass shit. Sound like they learned slavery the way the white people did. Cartoons and shit. Or maybe school. I don't really know what to tell you. Because I went to Chicago. I'm from Chicago. And Chicago had great schools. I went to public schools. I went to all kinds of schools. Chicago had great schools. The learning environment could be tricky in some situations. Like I say, it's a lot of overcrowding. Some of the schools was in rough neighborhoods that was fucked up. The police just don't care about us. The police their main concern with the children at this school is making sure they protect communities outside of this community from us encroaching on them. They don't protect us because we're children. They make sure that us children don't do anything. We don't steal. We don't even flirt with girls of other races in other neighborhoods. That's really what that's really what my beef was and my problem was growing up in Chicago. I didn't really see race. I was really racially, the way my great-grandma raised me. My great-grandmother and my grandmother were both verbally speaking, they were both verbally against racism so much. And it hurt them both. My grandmother was so light-skinned, most people, I ain't gonna say most people, but a lot of people wanted her to pass for white. And people assumed that she was white. When we was out and about with my grandmother, people assumed that she was black. When my grandma would just have me and Tino, when great-grandma would have just me and Tino, things weird would happen sometimes. I remember one time, it's a story that, we all tell because it was so funny, but me and Tino, we was probably about 8, 9, maybe 10, 11, 12, I don't know. But we were somewhere between the ages of 8 and 12. And we was at a grocery store. And this was, Grandma liked going into Evanston. We live way north in Rogers Park. But Grandma liked going into Evanston to get groceries because those grocery stores were a little bit better. So a lot of times we would catch the bus out there and then we would take a cab back. So anyway, we catch the bus to the grocery store. We go shopping with Grandma, and Grandma was old. Grandma was old. Grandma was probably about 78. And this back then, And so anyway, Grandma's old. She's tired. She walked with a cane, and she looked like a big white lady. In her older days, she lost all of her complexion. Like, she got white. I think she used to try to tan as much as possible. But anyway, she was very white towards her last, when she was old. Anyway, we at the grocery store, me and Tino, we running around the store, we waiting on the cab. And Grandma is sitting on a bench in front of the store with the cane. And me and Tino, we just being boys in the grocery store. We're not being too rowdy. We're not yelling. We're not, cursing or fighting anything. But we just being boys. But as part of being boys, we steady running back up to Grandma. We steady running back up to Grandma like, Grandma. But anyway, this white lady slides over to Grandmother. And she's like, if those boys are bothering you, I could get rid of them or something like that, she said to my grandma. And my grandma went the fuck off. Stupid white bitch. My grandma, and that's the thing about great grandma. Grandma was super sweet, super friendly, super personable 98% of the time. So when she finally did snap and curse a motherfucker out, oh boy. And that's one of those priceless situations. This lady like, you know what I'm saying, you white bitch, them are my grandbabies. And what, you know what I'm saying? And they just being boys. The fuck you mean if they bothering me? Like, what the fuck? But is, you know, grandma was looking annoyed. We was annoying her and she looked annoyed. You know? And us, of course, me and Tino, our grandma upset. So we immediately snap into high alert. And I probably did go over there and I was like, you could leave us alone now. You know what I'm saying? Like, you upset at my grandmother. You can leave us alone now. We got this, lady. You know what you said to her, whatever you said, please leave my grandma alone. Because she was trying to explain herself. She was like, no, I didn't mean no offense. Blah. My grandma was so fucking mad. But again, how annoying is that? You waiting on the cab. You just want to get back home with your boys. And she don't care about nobody in the store. She's annoyed, but she annoyed that the cab is taking so long. You know, grandma love me, man. Grandma love me, man. Grandma love me, man. People don't know how much grandma love me. And me and grandma would just have so much fun. Like, that was one thing. Grandma liked to nerd out. And she probably nerded out with all of us. But me and her nerded out a lot. Me and grandma nerded out a lot. And she would have so much fun when she would get in teacher mode. And she had a library. And she would be like, go get that book. Like, sometimes I asked the right question. And she'd be like, go get that book. And I go get that book and, you know. Anyway, I digressed for a long time. But, you know, I had a lot of empathy, period. Because, again, my great-grandmother looked white. And sometimes that would come from our side. Like, some of my buddies would be like, who is that white lady you be talking to? Or why you be going in that white lady house? And all this stuff. And a lot of times I'll just be like, what like white lady house, man? Don't be saying I'll be going to no white lady house, man. You gonna get me in trouble, man. White lady house? What the hell you talking about? Yeah, the white lady. The candy lady. My grandma, nigga? You calling my grandma white, nigga? I know my grandma's sensitive about that, so it might make me go off. You know what I'm saying? My grandma got the light-skinned woman complex. And a lot of light-skinned guilt. And, but anyway, I'm also, my name, I don't have a black name according to most black people. My first name is too Spanish, my last name is too Jewish, and when you add it all up together, it just don't make no sense. What type of Negro is you? But again, that's not common. Those are rare Negroes. That's rare when a black person goes, Diego? I ain't never heard of a black person named Diego. I usually look at them like, motherfucker, most Diegos I knew was black. What the fuck are you talking about? I grew up in Chicago. Most Diegos I knew, I was, of all the black Diegos I know, I'm probably the lightest one. But I also knew Hispanic Diegos too. But most of the Diegos I knew in Chicago growing up was black. I've had Diegos as classmates. As a matter of fact, in my special education class, Miss Maggie class, I talk about that at Gale. I was in special education. It was a little bitty classroom. It was only like 12 of us. 2 black kids named Diego. You got me and the other Diego. And I don't really want to say his name. You know, I don't want to put him out there like that. But one, he would never change his name. He loved his name being Diego. Diego was cool, man. I ain't never met a Diego I didn't like. I don't think. As a matter of fact, I called the call center for Uber the other week, and I talked to this young man, and he was cool as shit. But this was a call center in the Philippines, and his name was Diego. And I knew his name was Diego, even though he didn't tell me his name was Diego. But the way he said my name and the way he was like, he kept saying my name. He kept saying Diego. And the way he was saying it, I could tell that his name was Diego. And like towards the end of the call, he was like, my name is Diego. You know, my name is Diego too. And I was like, I know, buddy. I know. I'm an old Diego, motherfucker. I was Diego, you know what I'm saying? I've been Diego more than twice as long as you've been alive. And I used to work at a call center. So shout out to that Diego in that Filipino Uber call center. If he could somehow see this, man. It's me, the Diego that was talking to you that one day I was really, really mad at Uber. I wasn't mad at you. I really enjoyed talking to you, Diego. I think I might have expressed that before I got off the phone. I think I apologized for being so angry when I first called. But I think I apologized to young Diego. Shout out to Diego and all the Diegos. All shades of brown Diego. But I will roast your stupid ass if you say some stupid shit. As a matter of fact, I was talking about the Hispanic chick that just came up to me with the L. Ron Hubbard thing. What causes fear? What causes fear to get trapped in your mind? What causes fear to get trapped in your mind? I was never allowed to be afraid. I remember me and my mom have had arguments as an adult. And I remember one argument I had with my mom, and I was like mad at my mom, and I was like snapping at my mom, and I was like, I was not allowed to be afraid. Like my mom did not allow me to do a lot of shit. My mom didn't allow me to be afraid. My mom didn't allow me to complain. My mom didn't allow me to brag. 3 things. Not ever. Not ever. And then when you really talk about some of these things, it gets crazy. So I was talking to my mom about that because my mom was talking to me about fear. And I was like, you would not allow me to be afraid when I was 8. If I was 7 years old and I said I was scared to take the train from the south side to the north side, you would have whooped my ass. I wouldn't have been afraid. But again, I was not allowed to be afraid. And if I ever showed any fear, you know what I'm saying, my mama, no. You can't be the scared one. You can't be the scared one. You the man of the house. That's the funny thing about growing up as the baby boy in the house full of these women that's always bullying you. Y'all bully me 24/7, but let a roach show up. Let a mouse show up. And that's another thing. So as a black man from Chicago that would be called, Chris Rock, I'm going to talk about that. It's going to be one of those episodes. Like I said, I'm giving white people props, but I also got to give sellouts some shade. Sellouts like Chris Rock. Sellouts like Dave Chappelle and Umar Johnson. I shouldn't call them sellouts. I'm being kind of tongue-in-cheek because I don't like using the word sellouts. I don't think Dave Chappelle is a sellout. He just ain't never liked black people. I don't understand it. I would like to understand it. But Dave Chappelle is Dave Chappelle. Umar Johnson did an interview where he was talking about Dave Chappelle, and he said something like Dave Chappelle is the most unapologetically black comedian he's ever seen. Well, motherfuckers is finna be telling Umar Johnson how fucking stupid he is for that shit. Of all the black comedians, Dave Chappelle is the most unapologetically black comedian. Are you out of your fucking mind? I didn't like Paul Mooney, but he was unapologetically black. Patrice O'Neal, that is how you be unapologetically black and intelligent at the same time. You got to be intelligent. Intelligence is the most important thing, and Dave Chappelle is intelligent. So that's one reason, like I said, I don't want to call Dave Chappelle a sellout, but I would love to interview him and ask him, like how did you end up marrying a non-black chick and you was already famous? You know what I'm saying? And then that movie is one movie, He had that gorgeous ass black nerdy girls. And I know, you know what I'm saying, the nerdy girls like Dave. Now, it's complicated, but because Dave was like a real nerdy black girl, Dave was a little bit too vulgar. And of course, he smoked too much weed. And back in those days, like when Half Baked came out, black girls didn't really smoke weed like that. That was considered really trashy and really hood rat behavior. Most black girls would not smoke weed. And even if they would smoke weed somehow, some way, someday, they would never smoke weed with dudes. Now these young girls, they be smoking and drinking with dudes like, and they ain't even banger chicks. Back in my day, banger chicks did that, but not even most banger chicks. Like most banger chicks was not, and I mean like real live gangbanging chicks. Most gangbanging chicks was not smoking weed. Most gangbanging chicks was not drinking 40s like that. So, yeah, white people, man. White people, Umar Johnson. I'm going to get on Umar Johnson. I'm going to get on Farrakhan and everything. Like I say, this is going to be the pro-white video, and I got to make it. Especially all these black people, man. You know, like, so many black people with this anti-Semitic shit. How should a nigga like me react? I got Jewish blood in me. And you being racist, saying stupid shit about Jews that ain't true. You are literally regurgitating Nazi propaganda from Hitler or some of that anti-Jewish propaganda that came out of Russia in the 60s and 70s that's been debunked long time ago. But you're still spreading around. You know, I want to say I love being black, but blacks hate Latins now. Blacks hate Jews now. And what does that mean for me? Am I not supposed to embrace those parts of me? Am I not supposed to study that shit? What does that even mean for me to give up my Jewish heritage? What does that mean about the Bible? What does that mean about the Torah? What does that mean about so many other things? And then genetically speaking, is it really smart for me to not eat kosher and I got Jewish ancestry? Is that intelligent? And what about us black people? My reading of the Bible is that the Hebrews were dark people. And I've studied with so many Jewish and Hebrew rabbis, and they really like 50-50 on that. From my studying and from where I've gone around and everything, the rabbis I've talked to are basically like 50-50. The 12 tribes of Hebrew or the 12 tribes of Israel were darker than what we see now, these German people. Most Jews will admit that and confess that. They don't like some of the theories about how and where they came from. But again, what's that got to do with other stuff? If you being anti-Semitic, you being anti-Semitic. You know, most Jews, I ain't gonna say most Jews, but I would say when it comes to Jews in America, I think most Jews in America are not Zionistic. I think most Jews, no matter what kind of Jew you're talking about, I think most Jews are anti-Zionist or not Zionistic, anti-Zionistic. Zionism, that's really some Christian shit, man. That's really like some new wave Christian, you know what I'm saying? That's like some 15th century shit. But it's also much more complicated than that because the Arab invasion did happen. The Muslims did take over the Middle East and parts of Africa for hundreds of years. The African slave trade wasn't that long compared to the Arab slave trade or the Indian Ocean slave trade or what we really going to talk about. Like I say, this is my I've already talked pro-white like this before, but one reason I'm so sick of people like Umar Johnson, we're going to have to really talk about him because you could thank Umar Johnson for Donald Trump being in the White House. Real talk. Umar Johnson might have as much influence as Donald Trump winning that election as Joe Rogan. Real talk. Because I was already upset with Joe Rogan endorsing Trump. I was already upset with that, and I was like, fuck, it's going to be impossible to Kamala to win. But when I start really stepping up, making my anti-MAGA videos, it was right around the time Umar Johnson, especially like when you see my pro-Kamala Harris videos, like when I start going dark, When it's like, I'm voting for Kamala even though it looks like she's going to lose. Like right before the election, I saw what Umar Johnson was doing on the Art of the Dialogue. So the Art of the Dialogue is a pretty popular black channel. You can almost call it a pro-Tupac channel. We used to think it was a pro-Tupac channel, but it's definitely not a pro-Tupac channel now. Because the Art of Dialogue, first and foremost, Art always says that Biggie and Tupac are his favorite rappers. You're not a real Tupac fan if you're also a Biggie fan. That's oxymoronic. That's oxymoronic. Biggie was a b-boy, drug dealer, party music rapper. Tupac was not. Anything you say about Tupac's style opposed to Biggie style, you know what I'm saying? It's like imagining Tupac signing with Bad Boy and being down with that Bad Boy shit. Do you think that when Suge Knight recruited Tupac, you think no black record label artist was trying to get him? You think that Puffy wasn't trying to get Tupac? You think Tupac don't know that Puffy wanted Tupac? Tupac wouldn't do nothing with Bad Boy. Nothing. You gotta think about that shit. He fucked with Biggie, but he wasn't gonna do shit with Bad Boy. I ain't gonna say he always hated Puffy, but him and Puffy fell out early. And I suspect Puffy flirted with Tupac. I suspect Puffy tried to bust a move on Tupac. Same with 50. You know what I'm saying? Like Puffy, that whole let me take you shopping thing, 50 is ex-convict, and he looked at him like, what are you really saying, man? Like, what you really saying, man? What are you really saying? Like, there's that little saying when they say, when you go to jail and somebody offers you some food, don't take it. I'm taking it. I'm taking it. I'm going to take it. Then what? What you going to try to hit me with? A 2-for-1? Some sexual shit? Yeah. And see, maybe that's why YouTube, not YouTube, but Facebook says I'm suicidal, because that's the mentality that I tell people you got to have, man. You got to convince yourself that this is a perfect opportunity for me to, you know what I'm saying? Kamikaze on this shit. I might not win, but that don't mean I'm not going to try my damnedest. And that's what make you dudes pussies. Everybody want to be a fighter, but they don't really like fighting. You don't want to fight. You just want to have some John Wayne fights. I used to hate John Wayne as a little boy. Fucking hated John Wayne as a little boy. And I can't stand black dudes that like John Wayne. Sorry, man. I don't really like nobody who like John Wayne, but I have had a few friends. I've had some few white friends. I had one white friend in particular. I want to talk about him. I hope I can get to him. As a matter of fact, let's talk about him right now. So the very last place I lived in, I was renting a house in a pretty nice neighborhood in Austin, Texas. I was renting a house. I was renting this house for years. That's the last place I lived officially. And that was a long time ago. But either way it go, I had this old white neighbor. And this motherfucker was an old, cranky, cantankerous old white dude. He would drink about 2 gallons of vodka every single day. This dude was old. This dude was like, man, he looked like he was in his 90s, but I think he was about 70, like late 70s. But he looked like he was in his 90s. But like I say, he used to drink every day, and he always wanted me to drink with him, and I would. I would sometimes drink with him. And me and him, this neighborhood I lived in was a very blue-collar neighborhood. It was mostly Mexican. The particular duplex I was renting, it was a black house. It was my next door neighbors, they was black. And then the house right next to us was an all-white house. But mostly everybody in the neighborhood was Mexican. And so this white dude, he would call me over there to talk with me, and we would talk shit and argue. And again, I fucking hated John Wayne. And I'm from Chicago, and I used to talk to him about this type of shit. I'm an open, honest dude. So I'd be like, man, I can't stand John Wayne. I can't stand you motherfucking cowboys. But, I can excuse a white dude like you liking John Wayne, but I can never excuse a black dude liking John Wayne. And let's talk about it. John Wayne fights was the fucking worst fights. Look at his fights. His fights was always like 3 or 4 swings. And they was always like super telegraph swings. John Wayne would be like, Chah! Like his punches looked so horrible, but they weren't real fights. You know what I'm saying? It was real, like at the most, maybe John Wayne would take one on the chin and he'd be like, pow. But it was all these unrealistic fights where don't nobody really kick him no dust to get dirty or nothing like that. And it's like, that's just not how fights are, man. But if you like John Wayne, if you like WWE, WWF type wrestling, you probably one of these motherfuckers that think you're a fan of fights, but you're not a fan of fights. You're a fan of domination and you're afraid of fights. You're afraid of fights. You're afraid of fights. You know what I'm saying? Muhammad Ali was the greatest, and we'll never have another Muhammad Ali. But that's a motherfucker that liked to fight. You know what I'm saying? That's a motherfucker that liked to fight. He couldn't wait to fight your motherfucking ass. Take you in deep waters. We gonna fight for 15 rounds, motherfucker. 15 rounds outdoors in the heat, motherfucker. And that's the thing about boxing. All you know is that you just can't quit before the person in front of you. Just don't quit before this motherfucker in front of me. When it comes to fighting, there's so many elements. And stupid motherfuckers, they think, well, first, you need speed or power or some combination or variation of that. One is speed, two is power. We in this era where people are calling the little Floyd Mayweather the greatest boxer of all time. That's blasphemy, bro. Floyd Mayweather shouldn't be in the top 100 because he's not even a fighter. He's not even a fighter. Floyd Mayweather couldn't make it in no fights. He could box. He can box. He's all right as a boxer. He sucks. He sucks. Floyd Mayweather sucks. He is nowhere near Muhammad Ali. And Muhammad Ali is definitely pound for pound greater than Floyd Mayweather. Are you fucking kidding me? Yeah, Muhammad Ali, you know, Mike Tyson, Muhammad Ali, Jack Johnson, Sugar Ray Robinson, you know, this new guy, Usyk. Usyk is the greatest fighter since Tyson, in my opinion. My opinion. Since Tyson was doing his thing, I don't know. Usyk got some way to go because there's still some undefeated fighters, and hopefully Usyk fights Deontay in April. Oh, that's going to be a good month. Something big is going to happen in April. Something really big is going to happen in April. So back to the original subject of this video. You must impeach Donald Trump and you must impeach J.D. Vance as well. And you don't have a long time to do it. Something is going to happen in April. I don't know what's going to happen in April, but something is going to happen in April. A lot's going to happen in April. A lot's going to happen in April. And I just want to remind, whatever happens, man, most of America did not support Donald Trump. Most of America did not support Donald Trump. He didn't win the popular vote, I don't think. We got the phone. We're going to get Google Gemini in on this soon. Oh. White people. I still didn't get to the point. I've made this point in other videos, but never, I don't think I've ever done this in the Fighting Idiocracy podcast where, you know, let's look at the facts. Like I said, I was going to talk about Umar Johnson. I was going to talk about Farrakhan. So Farrakhan, you know, I always suspected that I had Jewish DNA. I mean, it's just so many clues. It's just so many clues. One, I fucking look like I'm part Jewish. One, I look like I'm Black, Latin, and Jewish. Like, real talk, man. That's kind of what pissed me off sometimes when it comes to, like, race. You know what I'm saying? Like, motherfuckers, the shit people say. People tell me, like, Africa. In Africa, there's motherfuckers that look like you in Africa. And I go, where, motherfucker? Where? Because I study the continent like a motherfucker. Where in the fuck do they look like me? I look like a Black Latin first more than anything else. But then second, I look like a Black Latin Jew. Where the fuck they got niggas like me in Africa? And again, I look exactly like, I call myself Black, Latin, and Jewish. That's what I fucking look like I'm mixed with. What else do I look like I'm mixed with? What else does it look like I'm mixed with? I love when people say stupid racist shit to me and I get to call them out. You don't look Hispanic, really? So what do I look? What ethnicity do I look? Do I look like I'm 100% African? Or I look like I'm African and what? What does it look like I am? What does it look? Do I look like I'm a Black Arab? Do I look like I'm a Black Indian? Do I look like I'm a Black Native American? Or do I look like I'm Black and Latin? Like, real talk. I've never had, sometimes people, depending on where I'm at, I've definitely had, especially like when I'm around a bunch of Jews and stuff, and that's what trips me out. That's one reason I think that I look Jewish, because I'm around Jews so many times, and people ask, they be like, you part Jewish, man? Before the conversation even start, before I say any names or anything like that, they be like, you part Jewish? And I be like, I am, but how'd you know that? Like, what made you say that? Where you from? What kind of, tell me more. So I can start looking for pictures for, either way it go, it don't really matter. But that's the one thing that's really annoying me about these current day Black militants. Pro-Black used to be very acceptance, but now Black militants are trying to be like, we're going to be Black only, we're going to be pro-segregation, which the Nation of Islam, the reason they work with the Ku Klux Klan so closely is because they are the two main segregationist groups in America. Nation of Islam are segregationists, the Ku Klux Klan are segregationists, and they've worked together many, many, many times. Supposedly, they stopped working together in the 80s. But why would they stop working together? Why would they stop working together? They both want the exact same thing. They want forced segregation coast to coast. Now, why would the Nation of Islam want forced segregation for Black Americans? And what would that even look like? What would that even look like? Are we going to be allowed to live in great cities like Chicago and New York and LA? Or are they going to send us all to some place in the Carolinas or Georgia or Louisiana or Mississippi? Probably Mississippi or Florida. But again, who was that dude Farrakhan? And who was his leader? Elisha Muhammad or Poole or whatever. He looked like Arab to me, real talk. He looked like a Black Arab to me. He don't look like a Black Latin to me. Elisha Muhammad looked like an Arab to me, to be real with you. To be real, Elisha Muhammad looked like an Arab to me. But, again, I'm not Black according to Farrakhan because I got Jew blood in me. And the same with Umar Johnson. And the same with so many Black people. Everybody just hate Jews right now. And that really pisses me off because Blacks and Jews mixed a lot in cities like New York, my hometown, Chicago, Los Angeles, and other parts of the countries. Because of Blacks and Jews mixed in America, that is what fueled and started the civil rights movement more than anything else. In the South, so many places in the South, their very first Black school was made by some organization. There were these organizations, these Black and Jewish organizations that started in Chicago, but New York too. But I know for a fact, the Chicago Black Jewish Coalition, they came and built Black schools all over the South. I took a picture of a historic marker. Let me see if I got the picture of that. Well, no, I forgot. We got Google, and we'll get Google to talk about it. Still recording. It's crazy, man. It is getting hot than a motherfucker today. It's 65 degrees right now. It's just getting darker and darker. But you hear these birds. And it is that time of year. You got to be careful where you park. If you see that people ain't parking under a tree with a bunch of shade, it's shady, but ain't nobody parking there, don't park there. Your vehicle gonna be covered with poop or some kind of seeds that they up there eating. Oh man, you're telling me I might be able to get my phone cut back on just off of points. And I might save that for when I'm really, really homeless and desperate. I don't like you dudes that are so scared of prison, man. I don't like you dudes that are so scared of prison. That's another reason that white allies are more important than blacks. If we do have a second civil war, black people being unified ain't gonna do us no good. Black people, first of all, black people afraid to fight. Especially that type of fighting. For the most part. Organized military shit. Blacks are gonna leave. They are gonna leave. If they get invaded, they're gonna leave. A lot of places. Not my hometown. Man, nigga shit. Yeah, nigga shit. And again, hopefully everything work out. But also hopefully the Illinois National Guard start inviting people like me to come home and join the military. I'll definitely, I'm an American, but this last election has shown me that I'm not as much of a Texan as I thought I was. I gotta say fuck Texas right now. When you heard those people yelling in Minneapolis, they kept yelling at them, go back to Texas. And in Chicago, they kept the Texas troops out. They kept the Texas troops out of Chicago. And they was telling them, they was like, don't invade. Don't invade, bro. No fucking Confederate soldiers. This is the land of Lincoln. This is where the Republican Party started. And even though you fucking piece of shit maggots took over the Republican Party, in Illinois, we're not going to forget that Abraham Lincoln and the Republican Party was built to make sure that slavery never returned itself. We're not fucking Confederates in Chicago, Illinois. And I'm definitely willing to fight and die and defend Illinois soil from fucking Confederates. Confederate flag waving Nazi motherfuckers. Slavery ain't never been a thing in Chicago, and we should all be willing to die to make sure it stays out of there. And I'm saying that in Texas. And I'll go anywhere. I did quit my trucking job because they kept sending me to South Carolina. And it's not about me being afraid of South Carolina, but it's like, and I kept yelling at them motherfuckers, I'm not your fucking slave. You hired me for the West Coast, and now you just think you own me and you just gonna send me where the fuck you want to send me? You hired me to drive around the border states, the Mexican states. I'm supposed to be a Southwest regional driver. They hired me, switched to South Mid-South. And then even as I'm a South Mid-South, I still don't spend no time South Mid-South. I'm mostly East. That shit pissed me off so much, man. That shit pissed me off. I'm talking to motherfuckers in Texas. I'm talking to motherfuckers in Missouri. And they like, it's the South. Bitch, North Carolina is not California. Bitch, Georgia is not motherfucking Arizona. Motherfucker. And then on top of that, I am a descendant of slaves. And I was born in Chicago. My ancestors got to Chicago from the Great Migrations. Both of my parents. My father's biological side, I've learned this from studying the ancestry. They came from like the South Carolina, North Carolina area to Chicago. And then my mom's family came from Texas. So they went to Chicago running away from these segregationists and these stupid ass motherfuckers. And I'm down here in the South, and I'll say it. I'm not scared, and I'm pissed. I'm fucking pissed. I'm fucking pissed, man. I'm so fucking pissed with you Southern Negroes. And y'all are the main ones throwing this misinformation out there. Talking about white people and shit. The fuck you got? What business do you got talking about white people in California and you've lived in Louisiana your whole life? the fuck business you got talking about white people in Colorado and you lived in motherfucking Georgia your whole life? What the fuck business you got talking about what's going on in Minneapolis and you lived in fucking Florida your whole fucking life? That's one thing that's pissing me off. The South can't rise again. The South can't rise again. Fuck that. And this is somebody living in Texas, and I'm ready to leave. I got court coming up soon, and I don't give a fuck. Like I've been telling these people, I don't give a fuck, man. These motherfuckers send me back to prison. Good. I'll do my time. I'll leave the state, and I'll go find a state that ain't as fucking racist as Texas. I'm sick of this type of racism. And the stupidity. Stupidity, man. Texas got a lot of wonderful black history. But they don't care to fucking teach it down here. Like, real talk, you motherfucking Texas niggas and all you motherfucking niggas need to get off Chicago nuts. We teach black history in Chicago. Chicago was founded by a black man named DuSable. That's taught in schools. We taught about slavery and the Civil War, and we learned the Civil War very different from you motherfuckers. I was down south of here. I was in a small town outside of Austin about a month ago, and I gave this bitch a bad review. White bitch. Yeah, I'm giving white people props and everything, but I'm still going to talk about some of y'all. I'm real sick of you ugly white bitches with that, oh, he going to rape me energy. I'm not taking it no more, man. I'm not taking it no more. I'm not taking it no more. If you act like that in front of me, I might just yell at you, you ugly fucking stinking ass cunt. I am not a fucking child molester, and if I was, I wouldn't want you or your ugly fucking children. I'm almost 50. If I was in my 20s, you wouldn't be on my level. Like, stinking ass bitch. And it do be the ugly bitches. It always be the ugly bitches. Like, motherfucker, if you didn't notice me, I wouldn't even fucking notice your ass. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. I'm so sick of you motherfuckers in the South acting like we the ugly motherfuckers. Just because you don't like black people. Black people are beautiful. And I'm from Chicago, the most beautiful women in the world, nigga. All of our women, diverse. But yeah, man, I've been around so many motherfuckers. Chicago women, they don't look good. All right, motherfucker, let's prove it. I went to a gang of schools. I bet you this. I could show you my class photos from any school. You're not going to beat me on pretty girls. Some crazy bullshit, man. And just to be flat out, man, y'all not as pretty in the South as they are in the Midwest or the North. It just period point blank. Y'all not as pretty as y'all think y'all are. I live in Austin, man. These bitches in Austin ain't never know how to do their hair. These bitches in Austin, these motherfuckers was wearing that fake ass, bullshit ass weave before anyone else in the country. That shit was blowing my mind. And by the fake ass weave, I mean like it don't even look like human hair. It was like rope and shit like that. Like what the fuck are you putting in your hair? Putting this shit in their hair and they get these fucking crazy ass fucking rashes and shit, got patches of scalp falling out because these motherfuckers is putting fucking polyester fucking hair in their fucking head. Fucking blue weave, fucking red weave. I'm attracted to black women. I don't mind black hair. And I don't mind, I miss fucking black natural hair. Because Chicago bad now too. That's one problem with America and the black community. The black community is becoming a little bit too homogenous. People love talking about what black people are like and what black people do, and black people don't do this. I was watching some video. One of these stupid ass YouTubers is always making these pro-black videos. He had said something really stupid about something that black folks don't do. And I was like, where the fuck is this nigga from? Black folks don't do what black people really invented. He was saying some shit like what black people invented. But they just don't do it where in this part of the country. And it's like, what the fuck? And they say that shit all the time. Black people, we scared of nature. Really, nigga? We scared of nature. If you a citified, urban-ass motherfucker, you probably a little scared of the country. But really, nigga? White people. And black people love telling those type of jokes. Oh, man, we need white people. One of my favorite comedians, I just heard him tell this joke. It's an old joke. But he tell us, we need white people. If not for white people, how we going to know what sharks eat? So black people learned about animals from white people. How fucking stupid does that fucking sound? How fucking stupid does that sound? What animal, besides like Josh Johnson, one of my favorite comedians, especially politically speaking right now. I like Josh Johnson. He's not militant. He ain't, he ain't me. He ain't for me, but I love what he's doing. But he was telling these Australian jokes, and they was kind of stupid. They was kind of stupid because he doesn't know enough about Australia's black and Aboriginal history. So he was saying like really stupid stuff, and he was like, white people do this and white people that, white people that. And some of the audience was reacting like, we'll have to have a talk with you after this set, Josh. Because a lot of stuff he was saying is Aboriginal. It ain't white at all. It ain't white at all. He was like saying some really stupid stuff about kangaroos, and there was good jokes because, my type of comedy most people ain't gonna like. Josh Johnson is talking to the masses, and the masses are stupid, and the masses probably do agree with what he was saying about koalas and kangaroos. But Josh was basically saying, yeah, us Americans, we're stupid. We don't know what a kangaroo is. We don't know what a wallaby is. We don't know about wombats and koalas. And he was just saying all these things, but he was saying things that Americans definitely know about koalas. He was saying things that Americans definitely know about kangaroos. And we're a smart-ass country, man. There's a lot of stuff we stupid about, but we're not stupid about animals in other country. If you don't know a lot about kangaroos and wallabies and all that other type of stuff, you just don't be watching those type of documentaries, and that'd be hard for me to believe. I can't. Just got to watch those type of documentaries. Who knows, though? When you listen to a comedian, who knows if they're being serious or satirical and it was a good set. You know what I'm saying? Like I was saying, he was making them laugh, but there was definitely some times where the audience was like, damn, dude, because he was making fun of stupid people, but he was kind of displaying how maybe he's not as smart. And again, I mean, I can't judge him. He was doing a stand-up show in Australia. I've never actually done a stand-up show. I do my little shit on the internet, and I've done my little comedy for my friends in jail and prison and shit like that. But I'm not afraid to get on stage, especially for money. Fuck. I was a telemarketer when I was fucking 16. Fuck, I look like afraid to get on the stage. And what is the fucking worst that could happen? Some of the stories I tell on my YouTube channel, I can't stand motherfuckers. Like motherfuckers be like, public speaking is the biggest fear in the world. It makes me mad. This bookmarker, I like this bookmarker she gave me. What causes fear to get trapped in your mind? Well, what causes fear to get trapped in your mind? And I guess I'm afraid of a lot of stuff, you know what I'm saying? I used to have a lot of dudes that I call my friends. I used to call a lot of white people my best friends. I don't call anybody my friends these days. I'm not mad at anybody, but I am very mad and disappointed in a lot of people. Because I am who I am. I am what I am. I am from where I'm at. Then I moved to Texas. And everywhere I went in Texas, you know what I'm saying? Everybody got an opinion on Chicago. And the opinions are crazy. You know what I'm saying? What is it? What is it with us in Chicago? Are we too ghetto? Or are we too uppity? Are we too violent? Or are we too nonviolent? Are we too gangster? Or are we too wankster? Make up your mind. Make up your mind. What it really is when you travel, you run across a lot of bullshit ass piece of shit motherfuckers. And they ain't shit. Whenever somebody leaves with insults, remember that's on them. That's on them. You might feel it personally because you're like, what the fuck? Out of all these people here, you just targeted me. You know, a lot of times when people target you, I'm even guilty of this, especially like in some of my younger days. Like, it's one particular time when I was in the 8th grade. It's one time in particular I was in 8th grade, man. I fucked up. I said some stupid shit, and I'm not even ready to make that confession yet. But negging, I almost negged somebody. I wasn't negging her though, but I said something mean to a girl, and I shouldn't have. I said something mean to a girl about a girl in front of the whole classroom, and I shouldn't have. And I don't know what happened with me that day. But that's a funny thing too about like meanness and mean jokes. Everybody like mean jokes, but nobody like mean jokes. Everybody laugh when somebody tell a mean joke about somebody else, but when you tell a mean joke about, you know, and then the whole violence thing. Violence is cool and funny. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of people love and enjoy this ICE shit. This ICE shit is great shit. They just murdered a young woman, a defenseless woman, unarmed woman. Yes, she was in the car, but she wasn't trying to hit those people with the car. And this is coming from somebody who's driven over 2 million miles. You know, CDL, all 48 states, all kind of truck. I've driven drive-in, flatbed, reefer, tanker. I've driven all kind of vehicles all over the place. And the real job as a trucker is to anticipate and predict what four-wheel drivers are going to be doing before they do it. You got to kind of read the body language of vehicles, and you got to predict what these four-wheelers are going to do. And truckers get real good at that. I wonder how truckers feel about, you know, one of the reasons I'm mad with truckers. I'm mad at truckers got so MAGA. And there was so many of the motherfuckers at the truck stops starting shit. Then if you fight them, you the problem. These motherfuckers out here ganging up, loitering. Imagine black people doing what MAGA's been doing this whole. Imagine instead of this groups of white men, imagine that groups of white men or groups of black men. Imagine if Obama had did this shit with ICE and we was going after Europeans and shit, deporting Europeans, especially if they got like Nazi ties and shit like that. These motherfuckers, ICE, some of them have been caught off work, out of uniform, with their look like prison white supremacist tattoos. One just went viral. He had the double SS right here behind his ears. Well, right behind his ear. It was 2 SS right here. If that's a prison tattoo, that's a high-ranking white supremacist. Because they don't get the tattoos like whoever gonna be the tank boss. They don't do that shit. The tank boss get tatted up, shirted out, all that other shit. The dudes that they know, they plan on them not spending a lot of time in prison. They just gonna do one bid, get their stripes and get out. The motherfuckers get real subtle tattoos, but they get them in a place like right here. You got to think about the prison environment. You know, when you got a tattoo right here, every inmate is gonna notice that shit. And if that's the only tattoo you got, every inmate notice that shit. You know what I'm saying? And it speaks volumes. You walking around a prison, the majority of the inmates are black or brown, and you got SS. Because once you get to, and there's different levels of white supremacy too. And again, white people fight white supremacists. The English have done more to end slavery globally than anybody else in history. I remember when Queen Elizabeth died, some black Americans were shitting on Queen Elizabeth, calling her a colonizer and shit like that. Who in the history of the world did more to end slavery than Queen Elizabeth? Now, I do know some names that you guys are going to throw out. There's that one dude in England from Parliament who voted against colonization and slavery consistently for a very, very long time. The argument's legit, but it's not really legit. Nobody did more to end global colonization and slavery than Queen Elizabeth. And again, Britain, the transatlantic slave trade started late. I believe the transatlantic slave trade started in like 1419 or something like that. It ended in like shit. What did the slave trade end? The transatlantic slave trade. Slavery. We had our Civil War in 18. Damn, why do I want to say 1865? It was 1850, right? Why do I want to say 1865? I'm embarrassed about this now too. I should definitely know. Damn, I'm getting old and stupid. If it's 1 year, I should know that the Civil War started. I should. That's what I think. The Civil War is 1861 to 1865. That's probably what it was. Yeah, that's where I got confused. 1861 to 1865. I think. I don't know, but anyway, too much information in my head. Um. So yeah. So if the American Civil War started in 1861, that means the transatlantic slave trade and the English, the whatever, the that company that was in charge of the slave trade. What was we? So yeah, the slave trade. But what was I saying? I'm gonna ask Google and stuff. Oh yeah, the Jews and the black schools, the Jews and Black Power movement, and why and how is anti-Semitism spreading through the black, especially in the South. That's why it's so upsetting because the Jews went down there and built so many black schools. Hey Google, we need to do a Fighting Idiocracy podcast. We got to give white people a little bit of credit, but we also got to talk about this horrible murder in Minneapolis and impeaching Donald Trump and JD Vance. I got to switch to my speaker.
That sounds like a heavy but timely lineup for your podcast. Here is the latest on those topics to help you prep. The killing of Renee Good, Minneapolis. The horrible murder you're referring to is likely the fatal shooting of Renee Nicole Good, a 37-year-old mother and poet, by an ICE agent on January 7, 2026. The incident Good was in her SUV near an elementary school when she was shot at point-blank range by Agent Jonathan Ross. The conflict, the Trump administration claimed she was a domestic terrorist attempting to ram agents, but eyewitnesses and videos suggest she was a legal observer trying to move her car away. The fallout. Protests have erupted nationwide. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has criticized the FBI for taking sole control of the investigation, locking out state authorities. Impeachment, Trump and Vance. Talk of impeachment has intensified following the Minneapolis shooting and a recent military strike in Venezuela. Donald Trump. Multiple resolutions have been filed, like H.Res. 353 and H.Res. 939. Charges range from obstruction of justice and abuse of power to inciting violence against lawmakers and judges. J.D. The vice president is under fire for his vocal defense of the ICE agent involved in the Good shooting, accusing the victim of being part of a left-wing network without providing evidence. Current status. While over 140 House members have voted to advance articles of impeachment, the process remains stalled in a divided Congress. Would you like me to find specific clips or quotes from the Minneapolis mayor or the Trump administration to use for your podcast segments?
No, I want your opinion on what I'm thinking and stressing, how important it is to also impeach. Okay, wait a second. Why didn't that work? No, I want you to talk about my belief that we would have to impeach. Maybe it's the microphone. No, I want you to talk about how we have to also impeach JD Vance. It's not hearing me at all. That is a problem. Let me see if I can figure this out real quick. How we have to also impeach J.D. Vance because he's endorsed and backed up the worst things that Trump has said and done.
That is a core argument of the fighting idiocracy vibe. The idea that accountability shouldn't stop at the top if the people around the president are actively fueling the fire. If you're building a case for impeaching J.D. Vance on your podcast, here are the 3 strongest angles based on the current situation. 1. The absolute immunity argument. One of the biggest flashpoints right now is Vance's claim that ICE officers have absolute immunity to act. The angle critics argue this isn't just a political opinion, it's a dangerous legal falsehood that encourages lawlessness. By telling federal agents they can't be touched by the law, he is arguably violating his oath to faithfully execute the laws of the land. Podcast point. You could argue that he is creating a shadow law, where agents feel empowered to use lethal force without fear of local or state prosecution. 2. Prejudging the Renee Good investigation. Vance has been more aggressive than even Trump in his rhetoric regarding the Minneapolis shooting. He called it a tragedy of her own making and labeled the victim a deranged leftist before any formal investigation.
See, this is why I like talking to Gemini, man. She cooking. She is fucking right about all of that. What if I tried to have this political conversation with one of y'all?
Was completed. The angle. In an impeachment context, this could be framed as conduct incompatible with office. While not a crime in the traditional sense, high-ranking officials have historically been scrutinized for using their platform to obstruct justice or incite hostility toward specific citizens. Podcast point. Mention how Minnesota Governor Tim Walz pointed out that Vance is telling verifiably false stories about the video evidence to protect the administration's image. 3. The enabler doctrine. Your point about him backing up the worst things Trump says is essentially the complicity argument. The angle. In constitutional terms, this falls under high crimes and misdemeanors. If a vice president uses his office to facilitate or cover up unconstitutional executive orders, like the recent military actions or the law enforcement surge in cities, he becomes a legal accessory to those acts. Podcast point. You can highlight that Vance was chosen specifically because he wouldn't act as a check on Trump. Unlike Mike Pence in 2021, making his removal necessary to actually stop the administration's momentum. The reality check for the show. Since the GOP currently holds the House and Senate, an actual impeachment is a long shot. However, for a podcast called Fighting Idiocracy, the goal is often to highlight the moral and legal necessity of the move, regardless of the math in Congress. It's about setting a standard for what is acceptable behavior from a VP. Would you like me to find the specific absolute immunity quote from Vance so you can play it or read it for your listeners?
That's unnecessary. He said it so many times, but I'm glad you brought it up. What even is such a saying? He's literally saying that police are above the law, and it almost seems like nobody really notices it. But the Trump administration and MAGA are really slick like that.
That's the slick part you're talking about. They aren't just defending a single officer, they are trying to fundamentally change how the law works for federal agents. When Vance says absolute immunity, he's performing a bit of a legal magic trick. In actual law, absolute immunity is usually reserved for people like judges or the president for their official acts. Most police officers only have qualified immunity, which is already a very high bar to clear, but it still allows them to be prosecuted if they clearly violate the law. By claiming absolute immunity for ICE agents, Vance is essentially trying to create a protected class that is untouchable by state or local authorities. Here's why that fits perfectly into your fighting idiocracy theme. 1. The state versus federal power grab. Vance is using this language to tell Governor Tim Walz and the Minneapolis prosecutors to back off. By insisting this is an absolute federal issue, he's trying to strip away the state's right to investigate a murder that happened on their own streets. The podcast point. It's a total flip-flop on states' rights. They claim to love state power until a state wants to hold a federal agent accountable for shooting a citizen. 2. Predetermining the truth. You mentioned they are slick. Notice how Vance called Renee Good brainwashed and a deranged leftist before the FBI investigation even finished. The strategy. If you label the victim a terrorist immediately, as Secretary Kristi Noem also did, the absolute immunity argument sounds more reasonable to their base. They turn a legal question into a culture war battle so people don't notice the legal precedent they're breaking. 3. The complicity argument for impeachment. This goes back to your point about J.D. Vance being just as responsible as Trump. The case. If Trump says something wild, Vance is the one who goes to the press room to provide the legal justification for it. By providing the intellectual and rhetorical cover for these actions, he's making the policy permanent. Podcast point. You could argue that while Trump is the spark, Vance is the fuel that makes the fire spread through the entire legal system. It's definitely a bold move to call for the impeachment of both, but if the argument is that they are working in tandem to place federal agents above the law, it's a consistent stance. Do you want to look at the specific states' rights arguments that local Minnesota leaders are using to fight back against Vance's immunity claims?
I want to focus on Vance a little bit more and how he said Trump might be America's Hitler. He's never walked those statements back, apologized, or said that Trump isn't really like that. So, as far as I know, and that's my question, has J.D. Vance explained why he went to become the VP for the guy he said was America's Hitler?
That's a critical point for your podcast, especially given the fighting idiocracy theme. It speaks directly to the question of political opportunism versus genuine belief. To answer your question, J.D. Vance has addressed those comments, but his explanation is exactly what you might expect from someone trying to pivot into the White House. He hasn't walked them back in the sense of saying he never said them, but he has tried to rewrite the narrative around why he said them. Here is the breakdown of his explanation and why it's such a slick move. 1. The I was wrong defense. During the 2024 vice presidential debate and several interviews, Vance explicitly said, I was wrong about Donald Trump. His reasoning. He claims that back in 2016, he bought into the media's lies about Trump. He argues that after seeing Trump's first term, specifically mentioning the economy and border security, he realized his Hitler comparison was a mistake. Podcast point. You could argue this is the ultimate idiocracy move. Calling someone the world's worst villain one year and then saying, my bad, he's actually great, once a VP slot opens up. 2. The results over rhetoric pivot. Vance now frames his past criticism as being about Trump's style rather than his substance. His reasoning. He says he used to think Trump was just a cynical a-hole who wouldn't get anything done. Now he argues that Trump delivered for the American people, so the mean tweets or authoritarian rhetoric don't matter as much to him anymore. Podcast point. This is where you can tie in the impeachment argument. If his excuse for backing an American Hitler is that the results were good, it suggests he's willing to overlook any level of behavior as long as his side is winning. 3. Deleting the evidence. It's worth noting that before he ran for Senate and then VP, Vance went on a scrubbing spree, deleting many of his most critical tweets from 2016 where he called Trump reprehensible and an idiot. The reality, while he says he's being open about being wrong, he only became open once the old messages were leaked, and he had no choice but to address them. How this fits your podcast? You can use this to show that Vance isn't just a follower, he's a strategic enabler. He didn't just stop thinking Trump was dangerous. He decided that being part of the danger was his best career move. By sticking with the absolute immunity talk even after calling Trump America's Hitler, Vance is basically admitting that he's okay with that level of power as long as he's the one standing next to the person holding it. Would you like me to find the specific clip of him during the debate where he tries to explain away the Hitler comment so you can react to it on air?
No, I remember watching that debate, and that was one of the most watched VP debates in a while. I think it's kind of unnecessary, but if my memory serves me correct, your answer is correct. He kind of really said Trump was like Hitler because Hitler was successful politically initially, but that still doesn't explain why he decided to go work for America's Hitler, or if he decided that America needed a Hitler.
That hits the nail on the head regarding the idiocracy of the situation. You're touching on the difference between someone being wrong about a person and someone deciding that Hitler-like power is actually something they want to be a part of. If you're breaking this down for your listeners, there is a specific, darker logic Vance has used that goes beyond just, I was wrong. Here is how you can frame that America's Hitler transition. 1. The if you can't beat 'em, let 'em strategy. Vance's shift wasn't just a change of heart, it was a change in philosophy. He has recently argued that the system is so broken and corrupt that we need a leader who is willing to seize the administrative state. The podcast point. He didn't decide Trump wasn't like Hitler. He decided that the radical approach he once feared was actually the only way to get what he wanted. He has even quoted Andrew Jackson's defiance of the Supreme Court as a model for how Trump should act now, essentially saying the president should just ignore judges. 2. Accountability is for other people. This ties back to your impeachment idea. The angle. Vance spent years as a never-Trumper warning that Trump was a reprehensible person who pointed fingers at others. Now he is the one pointing the fingers, calling the murder victim in Minneapolis a deranged leftist and attacking the media for reporting on it. The hypocrisy. He once worried about the Hitler comparison, but now he's the primary defender of the absolute immunity doctrine. You could argue on your show that he didn't just join the administration. He became the intellectual architect for the very authoritarianism he used to warn about. 3. The opportunist versus true believer debate. Many people call him an opportunist, but the fighting idiocracy take might be more cynical. The reality, it's almost more dangerous if he does still believe Trump is America's Hitler, but joined him anyway. It means he believes the ends justify the means so much that he's willing to serve under someone he once considered a monster. Potential segment idea. You could do a then versus now segment. 2016, Vance. Trump is a cynical a-hole, or America's Hitler. 2026, Vance. The federal agents who shot that woman have absolute immunity, and the state has no right to question it. Would you like me to pull together a list of the most Hitler-adjacent policies or statements Vance has defended since becoming VP to help you make the impeachment case?
I would, but first, I want to focus on this whole Andrew Jackson thing because I've thought about that a lot, but we haven't talked about how crazy it is that the new leader of the party of Lincoln and Grant says his favorite president is Jackson. And some of the reasons are really crazy. I want you to talk about that a little bit more.
This is a great angle for your podcast because it highlights the massive identity shift in the GOP. You're right. For over 150 years, the Republican Party's saints were Lincoln, who saved the Union, and Grant, who crushed the KKK and enforced Reconstruction. But J.D. Vance has explicitly traded Lincoln for Andrew Jackson, and the reasons he gives are, as you said, pretty wild when you look at the fine print. 1. But now let him enforce it, quote, this is the big one. Vance has repeatedly used an infamous and likely apocryphal quote from Andrew Jackson. After the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the Cherokee Nation's rights in Worcester versus Georgia, Jackson supposedly said, John Marshall has made his decision. Now let him enforce it. The reality, Jackson ignored the court, which led directly to the Trail of Tears. Vance's take. He has suggested that if the Supreme Court tries to stop Trump from firing civil servants or taking legitimate executive actions, Trump should do exactly what Jackson did. Just say no. The idiocracy point. Vance is a Yale Law graduate. He knows that the entire U.S. system is built on the courts having the final say. by cheering for Jackson, he's basically advocating for a constitutional coup where the president becomes a king who ignores the law. 2. Trading the rule of law for the People's Tribune. Lincoln and Grant were about the institutions, the Constitution, the Union, and the law. Jackson was a populist who believed he was the only true representative of the people, which gave him the right to smash any institution, like the National Bank or the courts, that got in his way. The conflict. Vance has said he wants to seize the administrative state. He prefers Jackson because Jackson was the common man who didn't care about polite rules or expert opinions. Podcast point. You can argue that Vance is ditching the party of Lincoln, which was about preserving the system, for a party of Jackson, which is about burning the system down if it doesn't do what you want. 3. The state versus federal hypocrisy. This circles back to your point about the Minneapolis shooting. Jackson's legacy. He was a slaveholder who was famously brutal toward Native Americans and anyone he considered an outsider. Vance's alignment. By aligning with Jackson, Vance is signaling a move towards strongman politics. It's slick because they still call themselves the party of Lincoln to keep the brand, but their actual heroes are the guys who fought against the very things Lincoln stood for. How to use this for the impeachment segment. On your podcast, you could frame it like this. If J.D. Vance is telling the president to follow Andrew Jackson's lead and ignore the Supreme Court, he is literally inciting the president to violate his oath of office. That's not just a hot take. That's a high crime in the making. Would you like me to look up the specific interview where Vance first made the Andrew Jackson/Supreme Court comparison so you can quote it exactly?
Well, I want to focus on Donald Trump's love and praise of Andrew Jackson because Donald Trump himself has said Andrew Jackson is his favorite president many times, and he hasn't really given a lot of credit to Lincoln or Grant. Really, when he brings up Lincoln, it seems like he's putting Lincoln down, saying that Trump is better than Lincoln. Trump has said his favorite.
That focus on the Jackson-Lincoln dynamic is exactly where the fighting idiocracy theme gets its teeth. Trump isn't just picking a favorite.
Google was answering, talking about J.D. Vance and what he said about Andrew Jackson. But what has Trump said about Andrew Jackson?
He's essentially trying to rebrand the Republican Party by deleting its founding moral core. For your podcast, here are the most insane parts of Trump's obsession with Jackson versus his dismissal of Lincoln and Grant. 1. The Civil War could have been avoided. Trump has...
I almost don't even want to talk about some of the things that he said about Grant, but I can almost take people talking shit about Lincoln more than I could take about Grant, because Lincoln is just so popular, everybody knows who and what he was. But Grant was just so much more important, especially for us black people, man.
Famously said that if Andrew Jackson had been around a little later, the Civil War would never have happened. The problem, Jackson was a slaveholder who died 16 years before the war started. Trump's argument implies that the negotiator skills of a tough guy like Jackson could have worked out a deal on slavery. The idiocracy angle to Trump, the Civil War wasn't a necessary...
Yeah, if Andrew Jackson would have worked out a deal for slavery, he would have made slavery. He would have kept slavery. What the fuck?
Struggle for freedom, Lincoln's view. It was just a bad deal that a tough guy could have settled. This effectively puts Lincoln down by suggesting he wasn't smart or tough enough to avoid the bloodshed. 2. Better than Lincoln rhetoric. Trump has literally said, I am the most presidential, with the exception of the late, great Abraham Lincoln. But then he often follows it up with, I've done more for black Americans than any president since Lincoln.
We definitely got to address that. Because Ulysses S. Grant was after Lincoln. And like I said, I can almost take you talking shit about Lincoln. But Grant?
The dig, by saying he's done more, he's positioning himself as the superior version of the great emancipator. The podcast point. He treats Lincoln like a rival for the top spot on a leaderboard, rather than a moral hero to emulate. He wants the prestige of Lincoln, but the power of Jackson. 3.
See what I'm saying? Google says so perfectly. He treats Lincoln like a rival for the top spot on a leaderboard rather than a moral hero to emulate. What a wonderful sentence. Wrapped it all, just described everything so succinctly.
Racing of Ulysses S. Grant. You mentioned Grant, and it's telling that Trump rarely mentions him. Grant was the guy who actually won the war and then used the presidency to crush the first iteration of the KKK. Why Trump ignores him? Grant represents the rule of law and using federal power to protect civil rights. Jackson represents the rule of the strong.
Real talk, Trump really is like the opposite of Grant in every single fucking way.
Man, and using federal power to ignore the law, like the Trail of Tears. The slick switch. Trump loves Jackson because Jackson didn't care about expert opinions or elites. By making Jackson the face of the GOP, Trump is signaling to his base that the law is whatever the leader says it is. 4. Bringing the portrait back. Even in 2025-2026, Trump made it a point to put Jackson's portrait back in the Oval Office immediately. The message: this isn't an accident. It's a middle finger to the Lincoln/Grant wing of the party. It tells everyone that the era of preserving the Union and the Constitution is over, and the era of the people's president, who ignores courts and shoots first, is here. Podcast segment idea: the identity theft of the GOP. You could talk about how they've stolen the name Party of Lincoln, but are running the playbook of Andrew Jackson. They want the Lincoln brand for the history books, but they want Jackson power for the streets of Minneapolis. Would you like me to find the specific Better Than Lincoln video clip from his digital trading card announcement? It's one of the most direct examples of him putting himself above the founders.
Sure, if we can play it on the podcast.
That clip is a perfect example of what you're talking about. In it, Trump explicitly mentions that he got extremely angry when someone ranked him as the third best president behind Washington and Lincoln. The Better Than Lincoln evidence. In the video from October 2024, Trump recounts a televised exchange.
They picked David Pakman to, that's the video. It's a David Pakman video. And I think it's a couple things. One, I don't think David Pakman is a hater like that. I don't think he'd be trying to get smaller channels deleted. Two, I kind of think he likes people to share his stuff. Three, that's the content he makes. So for him to flag me if I share his stuff. And then 5, I'm pretty sure he can have some appreciation for a guy like me trying to share his videos to push the same message. Of course, I'm very conservative compared to Pakman, but you know, it is what it is, man. I'm actually glad that MAGA and Trump made me so mad that I started listening to guys like David Pakman and Beasley. Can't think of that guy's first name, Beasley. But it's so many very intelligent Democrats. Some of them from my hometown, Chicago. Some of them white boys. Some of the good whites from Chicago. I love Chicago, man. I love Chicago, man. I love my fucking city, man. I love my fucking city, man. And people talk about us like we're not a real city, man. Like every now and then, you know what I'm saying? So I moved to Texas in the 90s. And, you know, so many people would offend me when I tell them I'm going home or, you know, like I'm about to go to Chicago or something like that. And then they'll say some stupid shit or some crazy shit, like be careful or something like that. You know, when I was young, I just thought it was like a courteous thing. Now that I'm older and I've gone back so many times, I can hear it, man. It's like they don't see Chicago in a realistic sense. The young rappers, I need y'all to do better, man. We need more coming out of Chicago than just drill. Real talk, man. Chicago is such an intelligent city. And I'm disappointed because I do go to Chicago often. And one thing I love about Chicago is, I want to go to museums. I want to go to really the libraries. I grew up really poor, so libraries meant so much to me. And now the kids, they hang out at the libraries, but it ain't like when I was a kid. You know what I'm saying? It's not a bunch of bookworms nerding out. And, it's not a safe place for intellectualism. They be up in them libraries, especially like the hood libraries, be all loud on the internet, especially after school. It looks so weird what I was seeing in Chicago. It was like, damn, damn. So maybe Chicago just don't have, and that's not true. It's a smart city. It's lots of smart kids. Lots of kids taking violin. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what pisses me off about everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I say some shit about Chicago that's just normal, or like I hear them say some shit like, black people never blah, 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 blah. And then I'll just be like, well, I'm from the South Side. Who the fuck you think would do it on that side of town? Who the fuck would have that kind of job on that side of town? I know one video I was watching earlier, a black dude was like, it was the video was called A Black Guy's First Date with a White Girl or something like that. And I think it was supposed to be mostly comedy. It was one of those comedy videos that wasn't funny. But either way it go, I know one scene, they went on a coffee date. And then he said something like, who drinks coffee after 4 p.m., after 5 p.m.? And it's like, nigga, who's more likely to work the graveyard shift? The overnight shift? You know what I'm saying? Who the fuck is picking up trash at 3 o'clock in the morning? And, you know what I'm saying? In a city like Chicago. Or just all kind of shit. 12% of American truckers are black men. That's crazy when you think about it. It's hard for us. Black men make up such a small, we're not even 12% of our population. 12% of black Americans ain't men. Because we have such a men shortage, a male shortage. We die early and yada, 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 yada. But, so many times I'll be watching those videos and they be like, black people don't do that. And I just be like, I didn't know white people did it. I've only seen black people do it. And then like a lot of stuff be real stupid, man. A lot of my favorite comedians say stupid stuff like that. D.L. Hughley, back in his comedian days. I mean, he's still a comedian, but he's more political now. He's trying to be Dick Gregory these days. And I think Dick Gregory would be proud of him. Maybe. Dick Gregory was like typical black people. We tend to not want to endorse Republicans, especially black men. Black men tend to not want to endorse either party. Even if we vote a certain way all the time, we tend to not want to endorse a certain party because at the end of the day, we know both parties have been fucking us hard. You got the donkey dick, you got the elephant dick. Either way it go, you're getting fucked hard. And we homophobic as a group of people, generally speaking. Ain't nothing scarier than the thought of trying to bite on a pillow while somebody's ripping your asshole open. This is my comedy, people. Remember, all my shit is always comedy. And that's a joke, but that's a real joke. What the fuck is gay sex even, bro? It sounds horrific. It sounds mortifying. It sounds terrifying. It is. I'm a gentleman. I'm a sensitive dude. I don't even want to be having rough sex with a woman every time we have sex. Not even most times. For me, that's like special occasion shit. I'm a You know, guys would call me a simp. I'm one of those guys. I like the face-to-face love making type of sex with women. So I wouldn't even want to. I wouldn't even want a female screaming and begging me for mercy, even on like some play shit. That's not gonna turn me on. That doesn't turn me on. The thought of being with a woman that is repulsed by my very touch. I can't understand or comprehend how some dudes is turned on by that. So, you know, a lot of this stuff, I get pissed off about it. You know, this is the closest to praising white people that you're gonna get from me. Like I say, white people do need credit. Most of them aren't demons. But again, when we talk about human psychology, we don't talk about what we love. We talk about what we fear. We don't warn people and share what is great. We only share our fears. So we don't talk enough about the white people. But this little situation is a little worse because soon as that white girl got shot, people start talking about the 43-year-old dude who got shot on New Year's Eve because he was shooting the gun off, celebrating New Year's Eve. I'm from Chicago, and I'm from the part of Chicago where they shoot guns in the air. We don't fire fireworks. First of all, fireworks are illegal in Chicago. And to pop fireworks in Chicago, you got to leave the city, go buy them someplace illegally, and then if you get caught popping them, you're going to face some fines and shit like that. A gun is so easy to carry, store, you know what I'm saying? You got a couple clips and you can let off all night. Blah, 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 blah. And as a kid growing up in that environment, shit wasn't scary to us. Again, like I say, I got the bookmarker. Only one time in my childhood did Mama Abby, I did tell the story about how Mama Abby made me lay in the tub one New Year's because they were shooting. But other than that, the shooting didn't bother us because fireworks are scary. If you take a kid, you know, I got videos of the first time I took my son to my neighborhood. I need to upload that. I need to make sure I upload that. Damn, I need to make sure I upload that before my court date. But you know, my son had never celebrated Thanksgiving. We always did New Year's and we always did fireworks. You know, that was me and my favorite holiday has always been New Year's, and I always want to spend New Year's with my sons. And this was still part of that tradition where I spent every single New Year's with my son. And this was one year that he happened to, you know, he was at the apartment, and me and him just got to spend New Year's, just me and him. He was getting older now, and now it's just me and you, buddy. And so I was very excited because this was the first city midnight celebration I was going to take him to, and my neighborhood did not disappoint. Like I said, I was living in a Mexican neighborhood, working class, blue collar neighborhood. It's mixed, but it's vast majority Mexican. It's like 70% of the neighborhood is Mexican. But a lot of people won't notice it because the people jogging in the neighborhood are white. You know, it's a lot of weird neighborhoods like that in Austin. You're in a straight up Mexican neighborhood and you think it's a black neighborhood or you think it's a white neighborhood. And it's Mexican like a motherfucker, just like where I'm at right now. I'm on the corner of William Cannon and I'm on the corner of William Cannon and damn. Hold on one second, I'm getting distracted. I'm on the corner of William Cannon and 35. I gotta pause this real quick. Man, I gotta get ready, man. I'm not gonna pause this. Oh no, I ain't gonna pause this, especially now. I know where she work. Black people in the South, man. They'll ask you, like me. So a lot of times when I'm traveling in the South is so different from the North. A lot of times when you're traveling in the South, you'll get to like a little small town that's mostly black or all black or it's a sizable black population, and they all fucking look alike. They all fucking look related. And so when you end up in a place like that, they look at you like, damn, where you from? What you mix with? And a lot of times they'll ask you, what do you mix with? You know, of course, I know you black. I'm not saying you ain't black, but what you mix with, man? Because you ain't 100% black. And, you know, in my younger days, I get a little upset, maybe talk a little shit. Motherfucker, I'm blacker than you, motherfucker. Fuck you. You know what I'm saying? It don't bother me at all these days if somebody say that. But what does bother me is I've experienced this a lot of times. People ask me what I'm mixed with. I'll tell them, and they'll get mad. Be like, motherfucker, you just black. Why did you ask me what my mix was? And now that I tell you, you're going to get mad. That's a sign. That's a sign. If you ever experience shit like that, and it ain't just about race, but this is just something in life. When people show you hatred and it's just no reason, it don't make no sense, don't accept racism from nobody, man. Don't accept racism from nobody. I mean, we're all racist as Americans, but it depends on like certain type of maliciousness and certain type of hatred. And if it really is that hatred and you don't know shit about these people, you know what I'm saying? Like a person that hates Mexicans that ain't never been around Mexicans. A person that hates Puerto Ricans and they don't know the difference between a Puerto Rican and a Dominican. You know, a person that hates white people. White people. Again, I'm from Chicago. So already knew that amongst the white people, they had colorism too. Black people love saying that colorism is only with black people. No. It's real bad with Hispanics, real bad with Latinos, real bad with white people. And then, like, us Americans, we're stupid. We say this thing that nobody else in the world says. We just say white. Germans are white, Polish is white, Czech is white, Armenia is white. You know, so many things are just white to us Americans. And us black Americans, oftentimes, especially with the Umar Johnsons types, the Farrakhan types, they talk about race and ethnicity a lot, but then they hit that brick wall when it comes to white people. You know what I'm saying? Denmark and Sweden is not Russia. And it ain't like France. And it ain't like Spain. And it ain't like Poland. And it ain't... Black people love saying white people be on cold. White people stay on cold. It's black people that ain't united. I hear people say that on the internet, and I see people say that on the internet, but I love when I get to catch a person who says this in person. They be like, yeah, white people on cold. It's like, motherfucker, have you ever seen a map of Europe? That's one. That's first and foremost. Have you ever seen a map of Europe? Damn, that angle is a bad angle for my hairline. But I'm old, man, and I'm got this old noggin. But it's like, have you ever seen a map of Europe? Do you know how close Spain is to France? Do you know how close they are to England and Germany? Again, the map of Europe is more cut up than any place. But then it depends on what you call in Russia. Europe, Asia, Eurasia. Because that's just one big-ass country. But we really don't know. We really don't know. We don't know shit about race. You got dudes like me. You got dudes like me and dudes that, you know, when it comes to studying race, ethnicity, and genetics, I'm definitely not the expert. I'm definitely not the smartest person. On YouTube, I am subscribed to a lot of smart people. That's one reason that I get pissed off when people complain about YouTube and the algorithm and other things like that. Great example. So my last argument, I was arguing with another black conservative, and I think he might be an anti-MAGA conservative. Because he didn't refer to himself as an anti-MAGA conservative, but me and him was arguing about Oprah. And look, I don't love Oprah, but I do get sick of people saying that Oprah didn't do enough. Again, I'm from Chicago. I know some of Oprah's relatives. Real talk. I worked with some of Oprah's relatives in the hood. Real talk. In the ghetto. Some of her relatives, and this is when I was a kid. This is when Oprah was barely coming up. She just had the Oprah Winfrey Show. The Oprah Winfrey television show was new. She had the radio show first, but then she had the Oprah Winfrey talk show. But anyway, when she had the talk show, and she only had it, I don't remember how long it was, but she had this one cousin that I worked with. And if you know about me and you knew me at that time, you know exactly who I'm talking about. Hell, you might not even knew me, but if you know Oprah's cousin that used to sell cosmetics on the South Side, it was crazy. It was crazy because she looked exactly like Oprah, but nothing like Oprah. It's a real example of like, I almost was about to say the difference money makes, but it wasn't money because her cousin was not broke. She was a hell of a hustler. And I would love to meet Oprah and actually talk to her about her cousin because I know a lot. I know a lot. I know a lot. Because I was that type of kid. And for me to even be working with somebody like her, you know what I'm saying? I hope I didn't actually slip up and say her name. But she was a hustler, but she did not. She said some things about Oprah that made me go. Because I didn't know it was her cousin at first. Like people was telling me, they was like, that's Oprah's cousin. And I was like, what do you mean that's Oprah's cousin? It's like, that's Oprah's cousin. And like, I remember one day it was just something about her and she looked at it and I was like, I just asked her that day. I was like, man, I believe it now. Some of these people say that you Oprah's cousin. And yeah, you definitely, I see it. And she did not like me bringing that up. They actually set me up. They knew that she would get pissed off. And she wasn't happy with Oprah. And she definitely chose a different lifestyle than Oprah. And a lot of things that Oprah literally preached against on her talk show, her cousin was for. Like they really would have been like oil and water. Those two, you could tell that they had to either be exactly on the same page or they had to be completely away from each other. They both are so strong as far as their personality. But this cousin I'm talking about is way more bold and aggressive than Oprah. Selling cosmetics door to door on the South Side. And she got an old sugar daddy driving her around. Some cool shit, man. She cool than a motherfucker. And she wasn't as in good shape as Oprah either. She was heavier than Oprah. And she had what I used to refer to, it was like the first woman that I started saying couch booty. I referred to her booty as a couch booty. And the reason I called it couch booty is because the way it moved when she walked, I was like, man, and she a big old girl. And I was a little kid at the time. Not little, but I was a little skinny 12-year-old. So I'd be like, man, I could probably